Hello, welcome to the Quick Start Guide for creating your expenses in Crunch. Please note, in order for us to begin creating these expenses, you will need to have your supplier set up. So if you haven't yet created these, I'd recommend watching our Creating Your Suppliers video before proceeding with this one. This video will only cover the essentials that we do need to get started. However, at the end of this session, I will provide some additional information as well as links to other resources that you may find helpful. Now, with that being said, let's begin creating the expenses. So in this session, we'll learn how to create expenses for items like food and drink, travel, and subscription costs. So first of all, make sure you're logged into the system and then navigate to the Expenses tab and select the Expenses sub-tab directly underneath. We then need to go across to the right-hand side and press the New Expense button in this blue box here. Once I've done that, I now need to enter in some information about the expense. So the first thing is the supplier. So from here, I'm going to select food and drink. I'm then going to enter the date that I paid for these. And you'll notice the expense type has automatically been selected as subsistence. Now, this is due to the way that I have created this particular supplier in an earlier on video. So I'm happy with this and I'll leave that as it is. The VAT element itself has automatically been selected due to the type of expense as well. I just need to enter in a description and then the total gross as well. You'll notice as I scroll down that Crunch has automatically separated the VAT element for us. So we don't need to sit down and work it out. We can just let Crunch do it for us. The next section is the payment details. Now, this is where you need to specify how this particular item was paid for. Now, this could be perhaps through the business bank account or even through your own personal bank account instead. But from here, I need to specify transfer out of company account for this one. And then I get a drop-down menu. If you've got multiple bank accounts, you get to choose which one the money came out of. However, because my current is my primary, I'm going to go with that one. And as I move down, I've now got this section here, which allows me to attach files. You'll see it says optional. What I would recommend, though, just for your own sakes, is actually keeping digital receipts. And what I mean by this is taking a photo of the paper version that you get at the start when you buy the item or product. That means then that you don't actually have to keep a shoebox at home under a cupboard collecting dust, for example. So digital copies are absolutely fine. As I move down, I'm now happy with this, so I'm going to save this expense. We get a creation note at the top just to confirm that's all been done. But if I do want to double check, I can scroll down and I've got visibility over it in particular here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to create a few of these. The next one I'm going to create is travel, except on this occasion, I'm going to mark that I've actually paid for this one using my own personal card rather than using the business card. So all I need to do is go back to new expense. So in the top right corner, the box in blue again. This time, I'm going to select travel as my supplier. We'll put the date in once again. You'll see it's selected the public transport and taxis type for me, which is great, except this time the VAT element has automatically set itself to 0, which is exactly what we want. So that's perfect. I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm going to type a brief description in here. Travel card. Again, I just need to specify the payment details, but for this one, rather than selecting transfer out from company account, I'm going to select paid by director personally as well. Now, if you have got multiple directors within your business, this drop-down menu will appear as well. So you can then determine, right, A or B paid for this. So I'm going to scroll down, press save. Again, the same creation note as before, but if I do want to double check, I can now see both of these here as well. Now, the last one I'm going to set up with you today is for a subscription cost. This one I'm going to actually automate because it's going to be paid on direct debit. So it'll be coming out of my account on the same date, the same amount every single month. So rather than me manually logging into Crunch and entering all of that same data, I can create an event which will allow Crunch to just create it for me. So for that one in particular, you have to set up an original expense first. So if we go to the new expenses button again, I'll select my supplier as Adobe, put the date in. You'll see here it's selected professional subscriptions once again due to the way I've set up this supplier. VAT has automatically set itself, which is great. I'm just going to enter a description. It is. And I need to put the amounts in as well. On this occasion, I'm going to mark this one as being paid from my company account. I'm going to specify that it's my current. I'm going to save this one now. And there we have this data. So now the original expense is in our Crunch account. We're able to actually set up what's called a recurring expense as well. So if I go to the options on this one, you'll see an option here for set up recurring expense. So if I press this, I'm going to get a sidebar on the left-hand side that allows me to set the occurrence. So I can repeat this daily, weekly, monthly, annually, if needs be. However, because this one is direct debit, I'm going to select monthly. I'm only going to repeat it once a month, and I then get to specify which date. So I'm going to go with the 28th. So as we see here, it starts 28th of next month. I can then determine when I want it to end, if I want it to end at all. I'm going to press never on this one. Now I can also automate the payment data as well. So you'll see with this box checked here, it's selected transfer out of my company account from the current account. So not only is this going to create the data for the expense, but it's actually going to create the data for the transaction. So on the 28th of each month, my Crunch account is just going to create that information for me, and I don't need to do anything at all. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to create this event now. And then if I scroll up, you get the confirmation again. Now, if you do want to check what recurring expenses you may have set up in the future, you can just go to this section here, and then all of your recurring events will be displayed here. From the options menu, you can edit them, you can disable it, you can even delete them if you want to as well, but I'm going to leave that one as it is. Now, that does complete the guide for creating your expenses in Crunch. However, I do have a recommendation for you when creating expenses in Crunch. There's an app that you can download that's for both iOS and Android called Snap, so SNAP, and this allows you to simply take a photo of your receipt using your mobile phone, and it'll actually upload that information into your Crunch account whilst you're on the move. So it can be really beneficial if you're often out and about and want to keep your Crunch account updated as and when you make purchases. Now, if you do need any additional support or you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate on giving us a call. But thank you very much for listening.